Raptors head coach Nick Nurse has called out Gary Trent Jr., criticizing his level of defense this season and questioning his fit with the current Raptors roster given his current level of production. So we'll dive into what Nick Nurse had to say on Gary Trent Jr. in this video. Additionally, we have a Pascal Siakam injury update as we now know when to expect him back in the Raptors lineup. But unfortunately, with Pascal potentially coming back soon, Scottie Barnes has been added to the injury report, not for his ankle injuries, but a new injury he's dealing with. So lots of news to break down. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And folks, if you guys are enjoying all this Toronto Raptors content and want to stay up to date with this team, definitely hit that subscribe button. We're trying to shoot this channel to the moon. Our next goal is 27,000 subscribers, so definitely help us out if you're enjoying the content. It means the world to me. But let's dive into the news. And the first thing we're taking a look at is an absolutely wild quote from Nick Nurse calling out Raptors shooting guard Gary Trent Jr. Now, Trent is a guy, as we reported in the most recent video, is going to be likely returning to the lineup for our next game. But even though he had a hot start to the season, hasn't really been living up to expectations for Raptors fans for this year. I mean, just all around. Like, if you look at the stats and stuff, Gary hasn't been that amazing when you look at how he performed last season, right? 17 points per game is still solid, but efficiency, 32% from the three-point line is not that great, 41% from the field, not too solid there. But we've criticized, we've heard the criticisms of the star boy Gary Trent Jr. on the offensive end a lot this season. But one area where Gary Trent Jr. took a massive leap, and I was very, very high on, especially last year, was the defensive end of the court. And Gary Trent Jr. was so bought in, so amped up about his defensive improvements last season. He was mad that he didn't make an all-defensive team, for an award for last season's performance, and posted on Instagram that he'd like to be on that caliber of defender coming into this year. While we've discussed, and a lot of Raptors fans have discussed how he hasn't been that consistent on the offensive end, but those inconsistencies have also been seen on the defensive end. By no means has he been bad this season, but his steals are down at 1.4, down from 1.7, where he was top 7 in the league last year. His deflections are down. He was top 7 in the entire NBA last season on that front, and now he's 4th best on our team at 2.4, and just his overall level of activity doesn't seem to have that same hounding defense as he did last year. And Nick Nurse seems to be just frustrated with it, as he came out and had a pretty transparent quote about how he's viewing Gary Trent Jr.'s performance on the defensive end. Just basically saying it's disappointing. We'd like to get him out, get him a lot more aggressive on defense this year. I would say that that's been I don't know what the word is. It's been a little bit of a negative. He's capable of really getting after the ball and getting his hands on the ball a lot. And that's what we want for him to do. We're going to get him, get him his shots, get him his points, and we want him to be a disruptor. He kind of fits us. If he does that. And this is where we get a really interesting piece of the quote coming from Nick Nurse, as he fits us if he is doing that. And if he doesn't, he does not fit us. We need to get him back, and I think I think some of that is just he hasn't felt all that great physically for a lot of the games this year. So hopefully he's getting there where he's going to feel good here starting tomorrow. So a lot of things said in that little excerpt from Nick Nurse, but while we can all sort of see from the eye test, defensively he's not the same guy as he was last year, just in terms of activity, poking the ball loose. I compared his hands to like magnets, how he'd always get his paws on those basketballs last season. So, not that level there, but the fit comment from Nick Nurse really has me intrigued about what this sort of means and what he's sort of inferring on that front, because we all know Gary Trent Jr. is going to be looking for a massive payday coming up, and a lot of Raptors fans, just given that fact, regardless of how strong of a player he is, given the fact that we have to pay so many people in the coming years, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Scottie Barnes, even a Precious Achiuwa, OG Anunoby, we want to keep guys like Otto, Chris Boucher around. A lot of money is going to be thrown into this roster, and people are saying Gary's kind of the odd man out. And that sort of fit comment by Nick Nurse, saying that if he's not playing defense, he doesn't really fit what he does, what we do here, that's a little subliminal that could indicate Gary Trent Jr., if he doesn't sort of get back into that defensive shape, that defensive prowess, that defensive level we saw from last season, maybe the Raptors could be looking to move on from. Maybe I'm stretching what Nick Nurse had to say from this comments, but I don't think it's hard to see that if Gary can't provide an elite level of defense, because that's the Raptors' bread and butter, if he's not hustling, if he's not grinding out there on the defensive end, and all of the other question marks that we have going on regarding contract situations, we might see Gary Trent Jr. get moved. And I think that's the biggest reason why potentially he could get dealt, before this trade deadline. Not anything else, not the shooting, not the scoring. We know he's an elite scorer. We know he can put the ball in the basket. We know the law of averages are going to lead to that three-point percentage going up. But if he's not playing the level of defense that Nick Nurse and Masai Ujiri expects, this is a serious call out by Nick Nurse. This is something that, if you're not playing at that elite level, potentially you could get traded. We've seen Gary Trent Jr.'s dad talk about how much he loves the city. Gary loves this team. He's in the starting unit right now. Some people are calling for him to be moved to the bench. We might see some shakeups, whether it be in lineups or potential trades going forward if Gary Trent Jr. continues to struggle. And this is sort of the whisper. It's coming from the horse's mouth, and Nick Nurse, these whispers starting off. So let me know what you guys think, if I'm reading too much into these comments in the comment section below. But we got more stuff to dive into. And the next thing we're taking a look at is I got a wrong order of stuff. I'll talk about this first. But Scottie Barnes has been added to the injury report. Now, Scottie Barnes, it seems like every second game, his ankle has been, he's been dealing with some sort of issue. He's rolling it. He was taken out for a few minutes in the last game against the Atlanta Hawks. And people are just scared because we knew he had that injury coming into training camp, and such a young player, such a young asset that has dealt with injuries. He rolled his ankle in the playoffs last year, kept him out for a few games. These nagging injuries are just super unfortunate for our guy, Scottie Barnes, and he does kind of walk around with a limp at times during games, especially when he's walking. He goes from a limp to a full tilt sprint dunking on people, which is so obscure. It's really weird to watch just out there on the court. But fans are worried about his injury situation. Now, while it came out that everyone said his ankles are fine from the Raptors organization, they said there's no actual injuries going on with his ankles right now. He has been added to the injury report for something else, as Scottie Barnes is now day-to-day with a left knee sprain. He did not practice today in today's game. So not only is he now dealing with an ankle issue, he's dealing with a knee sprain. And honestly, just given the amount of injuries that we've had, given the number of guys that have been in and out of the lineup, I've theorized maybe the Raptors are snake bitten, but the fact that he's clearly dealing, I don't care what anyone in the Raptors organization says, he's dealing with some ankle injuries, and now he has a knee sprain. Sit this guy out for a week and let him get right. Let him recover from all these injuries. I know we need to win games. I know we need to stay on the tails of the Atlanta Hawks and all these teams that we're trying to push to get a top 3 seed. But you know what? If our top guys are not healthy come playoff time, there's no point in even getting a top seed, as we saw in the playoffs last year, because they're just going to be injured down the stretch. So rest Scottie Barnes, let him recover, and hopefully he comes back healthy. But apparently the Raptors have another guy coming back healthy in coming days, as Pascal Siakam. Return date, return expectation has been revealed, as Pascal Siakam went down with that groin abductor injury a couple of weeks ago now, and it seems like there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, at least for our MVP candidate this season, as it seems like Pascal Siakam will be returning. He's targeting a return sometime next week. So I'm recording this on a Tuesday, so we probably got 3 or 4 more games without Pascal Siakam minimum, and then we could potentially see him added back to the lineup. And this will be desperately needed from this Raptors squad, because our half-court offense is shaky without Pascal Siakam there this season. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. OG Anunoby, Scottie Barnes, Fred VanVleet some nights have done their job, done their part in taking up a bigger chunk of load for this Raptors team in the offensive end. But Siakam, just with three years of experience now being the number 1 option, has really grown, molded into that number 1 role, that number 1 scorer for a team, focused with all the defense focused in on him. He's getting great looks. He's able to pass out of double teams, and he's way more efficient as the number 1 guy than Scottie, Gary, and Fred VanVleet have had. So he'll be able to take a load off the other guys when he comes back into the lineup, and hopefully we can just get back to our natural rotation as a Raptors team, because it absolutely sucks seeing half of our team in and out of the injury lineups night in, night out. And apparently Delano Banton's also questionable going forward, so he might be back into the lineup too. No real updates on Otto Porter Jr., but hopefully we finally get players back into this rotation. And Pascal Siakam's obviously the number one guy we're hoping to return. But the final thing we're discussing is a former Toronto Raptor absolutely dominating for his new team. And this is a guy a lot of Raptors fans, myself included, was hoping was going to break out for this Raptor squad, and that's Yuta Watanabe for the Brooklyn Nets. And he's just been amazing amongst throughout the month of November down there in Brooklyn. You can see his stats just for the month of November: 12 points per game, 4 rebounds, 1.4 assists. But the numbers that really should be popping your eyes and stuff is the shooting percentages. 58% from behind the 3-point line down there in Brooklyn. Just, that's a mad stat. 4 threes a game. I know it's a small sample size and stuff, but Yuta Watanabe, I was saying, if he could just get that consistent jump shot, because we know he's going to hustle on defense. We know that he's not a great finisher either, but he's super athletic, right? He can dunk on people, but doesn't really have that touch around the rim in terms of layups. But if he can get that consistent 3-point stroke, along with his handle, along with his length, along with his athleticism, he could be a really, really solid role player. And now we're finally seeing him break out for the Brooklyn Nets. Some Raptors fans are frustrated we didn't bring him back to the team this season, but I don't know if he would have gotten the opportunity here. The 3-point shot was just inconsistent for this team, so I'm happy to see Yuta thriving, even if it's for my least favorite team in the Brooklyn Nets. But great to see a good dude succeeding in the NBA. But folks, you guys are the best for making this far. If you enjoyed the content, definitely hit subscribe. It means the world to me. I'm signing out. Cheers.